Sometimes you have to do that because the easy challenge is one you'll get lazy with. The big challenge gets you hungry.
Oh, how the tables turn.
That's a heavy topic, and we need to focus on that. If not for yourself, then do it for your children.
Black book is in
Black
Black
book.
Men Talk, Black Book. All right. We are here. Have no fear. What is going on, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. And you are watching Black Men Can Talk, a show where Black Canadian men come together to have real, unfiltered conversations about life, culture, and community. Kofi Sadat, what's going on?
Good to go in the place to be. Graduated from St. John University. And after that, I went to got on the mic with the crazy knowledge. How y'all doing? my Black History Month salutes. You know what I mean? How's everybody doing out there? I'm glad to be here as usual. Brother Kofi, how you doing?
I'm blessed, brother. I'm blessed. I'm giving thanks. I'm having some slight connection issue, so let me know if there's any issue with my sound. I'm just going to be correcting that in 1 minute. I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, there's a couple issues with the sound. But
there's so what's been going on, Paul, during the last week or during African History Month for you?
You know what? I thought nothing was going on until I reflected on my week. This week, I was my partner. She was involved in a storytelling event at Joker's Comedy Club in Thornhill.
Okay.
So I came along, and I'm like, cool. I'm going to support her. It's all good. Next thing I hear, that a guest didn't show up. So the organizer, like, I don't do comedy. I don't do storytelling on stage. That ain't me, right? However, I relented. She goes, "You just have to do 2 minutes. I did it. It was wonderful, and I think that's
beautiful.
I was telling Kofi earlier. Sometimes we got to jump out of our comfort zone. Right?
Yes.
Push ourselves to do something that's uncomfortable, but the results was nice. I mean, it was good to go up there to tell my story, not expected, but more importantly, I challenged myself. I made that shift. So I'm asking other folks, trust me. You know what I mean? The uncomfortable place sometimes is the good place in the end of the day. So yeah, it was fun. That was something that I did this week. I really enjoyed it.
I want to bless you, brother, because as I share it sometimes with people, sometimes you got to jump off a cliff and grow your wings on the way down.
100%.
So I really got to bless you on that. That's amazing. Now, are you ready to do it again?
Well, I'm encouraging others. I don't want to hog all the spotlight, so I'm encouraging others to get out there, you know what I mean, and get on that mic, tell your story, or do comedy or something on stage. It's an empowering feeling. I mean, I do it again. But my thing to say to other folks, you need to try it at least once.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Is it recorded?
It is recorded. I will share it. Initiated.
When you're ready. When you're ready. That's the key. When you're ready. That's good.
How was your week, brother?
There have been so many epic moments this week, even up to this afternoon. Was with a group of people, and there's a gentleman. We get together every week, a group of us, and there's a gentleman who had left,
right,
and for about a year and a half, and he's back. And I saw him. He came back a few weeks ago, and I said, "It's so good to see you back." I gave him a big, huge hug.
Nice.
And today we were chatting. And we were talking about the subject of love. And I told them, it was so good to see you back. It's so good to have you back. I really appreciate your heart, etc. And I started to tear up a bit.
Mm.
And the thing is, he started crying.
Wow. Wow. Hey man, listen, love it gets expanded in all types of ways. You know, it's not just romantic, but love for your brother. You know what I mean? Love for your fellow man. You know what I mean?
But,
definitely, that's big love. Yeah.
But the thing about it is, you know what? I'm a stoic man and I hardly ever cry.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
When I heard that line, I said, that was a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had that moment. And this happened about 6-7 hours ago. And
Right.
it's moments like that that I don't forget. And it's moments like that that keep me doing what I'm doing. Now, on the other hand, I was having a conversation with a group today, and a lady from Jamaica who I'd met for the first time. And she asked me about men. What's going on with men? This, that, and the other thing. I said, well, why are you asking me? Well, I know you do a lot of work with men. I said, why are you asking? Well, a younger gentleman that she knows, black gentleman, 34 years old with 4 kids, committed suicide.
Oh, so sorry to hear that.
So those 2 events happened within an hour of each other.
That's heavy, bro. That's heavy.
Now, for me, it is heavy, but it just reinforces I'm doing the right thing at this part of my journey.
I agree.
So that reinforces. Now, from the bullpen, I think he's frozen. Yeah, I think
he's either frozen or he's got the best pose.
You know, like he is just like focused, like I think he's a delayed frozen. Yeah,
Kofi, are you there?
Okay, he is not hearing us. Can't hear you. Yeah, we can't hear you. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go for a break.
All right.
And hopefully when we come back, we will talk about a subject that he's brought to the table. And okay, well, we'll get into it because Paul and I talked before the show. Now, he thinks we're going to get through all the points tonight. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. We're going. Go ahead. No, we're going in deep.
All right.
So we won't tell you what the conversation topic is unless you've looked on platforms. You'll know ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So we'll be back in just a moment after a quick little break. And this I have a feeling we're going to be starting with a multi-part series tonight. So we're back in 30 seconds. Good morning, everyone. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. Mr. Wayne Harris, what's going on, my brother?
Let's go. Happy New Year, Dr. Vibe and the family. If you have investments in the United States, good for you, because you just make money on the exchange. People are going to spend money they don't have to impress people they don't like. This is looking at the tax code and the tax regime and maximizing it in your favor.
All right. You catch that Monday and Friday mornings with myself and Ryan Knight, the Morning Vibe, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. I was going to say p.m., 6 a.m. Pacific on most of the channels that you're watching this live. Before we get started, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe show. We'll already start, but really get started on the YouTube and hit the notification button. Also like the Dr. Vibe show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Actually, wherever you're watching this, because I know Kofi has it broadcasting to his Facebook and YouTube. Like those platforms. Like those platforms. All right. And to advertise your business product or service on any of the platforms that you're watching this, please email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And finally, join our Discord group. Email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. All right, we're back. Now let's see if the main man for tonight is with us. Okay.
Slowly. I want to give a shout out to my brother Neil Logic. I know you're.
Oh yes. How's he doing?
He's good. I see him on the Facebook, so I want to give a shout out to my brother. Always
Logic. We need to get him on here.
Hey, listen, it's only logical. Sorry, that's my dad humor. Sorry, guys, that's my dad humor.
It's only logical. Okay, we're gonna try Brother Morris one more time. Okay, we're not getting him. So okay, we're gonna do this conversation. So last week he dropped a little knowledge bomb saying he wanted to talk about something. I said, no. This deserves to be a conversation on its own. So I think we're going to start this tonight. I don't think we're going to get through everything tonight.
It's all good. It's all good.
Which is good. No, I think it's a series. I honestly think this is a series, and I think there's enough there that we can cover a different subject each week, but we'll see what happens. So starting tonight, we're going to be chatting about 7 reasons that Black men face challenges in accepting leadership positions and how to overcome them. So my brother Kofi, when you first saw this, what were your thoughts on the topic?
I'm like, 7? I go, wow, a whole lot of reasons. It's a whole lot of reasons. But it made me think about, what particular challenges maybe even I've experienced or I've seen others experience around me, right? Like it's definitely something to open up about, right? Like it's pretty wide, like you said. I don't think it's going to be an hour conversation. But I'm interested in not just what I think, but of course, mostly what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
And of course, for the listeners out there, right? If they can express any, see, I don't know if you have any polls going on today.
I'm going to put one up. I just want to see if Brother Kofi is finally with us.
Yeah, as long as you can hear me, I'm good to go.
Okay, we can hear you. How are you keeping, sir?
I'm blessed, brother. I'm blessed. I'm giving thanks. I'm surrounded by what you often talk about, this beautiful brilliance of our people. And so much has been happening this month, and just connecting in spaces and hearing amazing things that are being accomplished from Durham to Mississauga to there's an amazing things happening this month. So definitely celebrating Black excellence.
Okay.
And ties into today's topic, of course.
You came up with this conversation topic. What was the strength in you to come up with this conversation topic at this time of your journey?
Great question. Well, I mean, last week's conversation, one of the contrasts to the topic of strong Black leadership for Black men are, for me, is what are some of the reasons why some men don't step into leadership. Sometimes you come across people, and Paul just kind of mentioned it in terms of his experience recently. You come across people that have particular strengths, and people might ask them, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? Or, you're so good at this, how come you haven't tried that? Or what have you? And oftentimes that inner brilliance stays there. It stays inside. It doesn't come out. It's not expressed. And often there's so many different reasons. And of course, we're going to get into some of those tonight. But for me, it's an acknowledgement that sometimes you need to be your own sharing section. So that's a lesson I had to learn later on in life, right? Is acknowledging that there may not be always people around saying, do this, do that. Yes, you should step up to this. Yes. And urging you on throughout the whole process. And that was my own personal experience that I had to accept, and that people would be pulling me from different directions, but not often necessarily pushing me up on the stage, so to speak. That's something I had to choose for myself. So that's why it is near and dear to my experience as well.
Okay, good stuff. Let's get into it. Well, let's start off with number 1. Systemic racism and bias in leadership selection. Kofi, give us the high level, and we're going to drill down in this. So number 1, let's kick it off.
100%. So, I mean, I know our listeners know this topic all too well, right? We've discussed it in so many different ways relative to systemic racism and how it shows up in our lives, from the medical industry to education, to film, television, entertainment. We see it, show up in so many different areas and spaces. And then its connection to the bias that's formed oftentimes, right? There's a lot of experiences that we've had even in community, where people are chosen in certain capacities, right? Because they're well known, or because, you know, the peer groups that they're a part of, or whatever the case may be. But sometimes, as a result of that, we don't necessarily have the right people in the right positions. So when we tie systemic racism into that, we've had this thing happen in our community for years, from here to America to all over the world, that the people who are going to be the yes men for the leadership, populace or whatever, are the people that are put in positions of power. So just because their skin is of dark pigment, or whatever the case may be, just because they represent you know, a black face, that person is put in a leadership position. But unfortunately, their thinking, perspective, their outlooks, etc., are extremely European, right? So we see that play out in so many different ways. So being able to navigate that is challenging, because we want to see someone like us. We want to see ourselves represented in particular places. So what do? We vote people in. We want people to, you know, to step up. But oftentimes that person may not be aligned with the vision and the needs of the community, right? And when they're put in that position, they're in there for a prolonged period of time. So what happens is people are saying, well, what about this? You said that this person was going to do A, B, C, and D, and they don't, right? But it's because they were ushered in. They were put in that position. They were, in some cases, planted there, right? So we've had that happens in so many spaces in our community. So ways to before I get into ways to address that, what are your thoughts? What are your brother's thoughts in terms of this piece? How have you seen this play out as well?
Yeah, as somebody who is a proud father of 4 children, and of course somebody who also was raised in this country, and I went to school. When we talk about places of leadership, the place that most of our children spend time in their day is in school, right? And many times we don't see Black male teachers or Black male principals, or vice principals. So we don't see Black males in leadership, and often, systemically, they're kept out of the classrooms. And there's a bias between, are they really good teachers? Are they good leaders and whatnot? And I think, seeing it from that level where as a young Black man and our young Black children, they're not seeing in the classroom itself, the place to spend the most time, they're not seeing that leadership from Black men, right? So I think it starts in those not small, but places like that, where by not seeing the leadership, then we're not going to get the modeling, right? And we're not going to get the future thinking around, hey, maybe I could be in that position of leadership if that leadership position's in the classroom or in the administrative space. So that's some places that I see it. Of course, we talked about the social work, but really, I definitely see in the educational system that it's a huge challenge. The bias and the racism keeping Black male teachers, much less Black teachers, out of those very important spaces.
I'm going to have a story then I want to go a little deeper. So I can talk about the teacher realm. I think both of you know that my dad was got a little bit of feedback going here. My dad was a public school teacher for 38 years in the same public school. So I thought when I was younger, hey, let's be a teacher, continue the legacy, etc.
Right.
And I apply, and people were saying, "Oh, we need more Black men in teaching. We need more Black men in teaching." Blah 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 blah. And I applied twice. The first time, and actually, I went up to York University, and there was a Black woman on their staff, and at that time, they had a program to fast track Black men into teaching, etc. Applied, didn't get in. Applied second year, didn't get in. I said, I don't want to be a lifelong applicant. Do you know that people still come to me today, say, they need you in the classroom. They need you in the classroom. I say, and I just came to the point, said, I can be a teacher. I don't have to be in a classroom.
Exactly.
So then built on that, I want to ask both of you, and I can also chime in here. what are some of the common biases that prevent Black men from being considered for leadership roles?
Well, I mean, it depends the realm, but let's just say, I one again, there's so many realms, and it depends what it is. But I want to come back to the school system itself, right? So the amount of young Black teachers that are coming out and whatnot, and it's a systemic thing where they probably will never get a full-time job because we have a system where it's like say unionized or seniority, not unionized, seniority, right? And we have a lot of teachers that are not of color, and because of the system that they have, younger teachers, in particular in this case where we need young Black teachers or Black teachers in the classrooms, are not going to get that opportunity, right? Which is huge. However, if there's an issue and there's a problem and we've identified that we need more people of color in positions of leadership, then folks either have to be bold enough to say, you know what, forget this quote unquote system that we've been going under. It's not serving the folks, or status quo. And I think that's where we are, status quo, in terms of, some of the racism and bias that we see in these positions, right? I don't think that, there's a commitment really from a lot of these systems that we talk about that are failing us for the most part. There's not that commitment to say, hey, you know what? We need to go out the box and address the issues and do things that are quote unquote unorthodox. Sure, there'll be some pushback, but we see that there's a strong enough need that we have to do things differently. So that's some of the things, because we have I won't say his name, but we have a brother within our rights group, master teacher 100%, and he himself can't get into a classroom, yet he has colleagues saying we need Black male teachers,
right?
Yeah, so I think those are some of the biases. I think otherwise, I mean, there are stereotypes about Black men and aggression and whatever it is, but for the most part, I think a lot of the problem is the systemic pieces that are keeping us out of some of these realms that we'd like to be in.
Kofi Morris, anything you want to talk about? Any biases? Have you experienced any biases in regards to applying or wanting leadership roles?
So absolutely. And actually, before I even speak about me, there's another experience of a peer of mine who completed teachers college. He's in his placement or what have you, and sometimes he would be mistaken, in the hallway, because he looks young, what have you, but he'd be mistaken in the hallway as a young person, right? He'd be mistaken as a youth in the school or whatever the case may be, and he'd have to say, no, I'm Mr. Such and Such, and produce his teacher card and all these kind of things, right? Like, these are some of the things that we experience, but if you look at it similarly to maybe a white male walking in that hallway, would the same thing happen, right? Would the same approach take place, right? These are some of the things that we experience, and this whole piece around microaggressions and stuff like that, right? When we're in these positions, and we might, let's say we're younger, in these positions, the respect that might be offered to a white colleague, right, may not necessarily be reserved for us. So as a result, you're now constantly on this upward, trek to be able to just maintain the position that you've gone through the same schooling, but of course you probably went through so many more challenges to actually get to that position. And now that you're in the position, you're still demanding respect. You still got to ask for the respect just for the title in which you've already worked for, right? So in these scenarios, I remember going to school and having maybe two Black male teachers, right, throughout, grade school going up to high school, right? You know what happened with both of those teachers? And actually, there was a third. There was a sister, actually. They all got fired. Something happened, right? In regards to a student or whatever the case may be. Two of them are French teachers from the continent, right? And some kind of issue happened, and there was some back and forth and foolishness. And at the end of the day, they just got rid of them. You didn't hear about them. You heard rumors and all this kind of stuff. But what it means is that let's say there was some kind of issue with a student not liking the approach of the teacher or something like that. If that was a white teacher, you'd see that teacher next week, right? Maybe there's an investigation, something's going on, and they're looking into things, but that teacher's coming back, right? There's no question. But our teachers now, as soon as they're faced with a conflict, right? Sometimes they don't even investigate. They just assume, right, that what the student is saying is correct. No minimal investigation, and they'll move them to another school. And the Black teacher now coming from, like I said, the continent, or coming from another environment and just trying to get their footing, they're not going to push back as much sometimes in regards to this whole process, because they want to keep their job, right? So we have these things happen, and there's no advocacy, right? The parents often don't know what's going on, right? So they'll just say, oh, what happened to Mr. Such and Such? Oh, he's no longer here at the school. And maybe there's a little bit of talk here back and forth, and that's about it. You don't hear anything else, right? So whenever there's challenges that come up, there's lack of investigation, lack of follow-up, lack of support externally. And unfortunately, we've had this challenge consistently of lack of engagement of parents in the school. So who's going to advocate for these Black teachers, right? It's often not going to be the other white teachers. It's not going to be the white parents, right? So we have this consistent, scenario that shows up in these and different workplaces as well that are beyond just the education system. But until we actually understand this, as Dr. Francis Welsing says, until you understand, white racism, nothing else will make sense. And at the end of the day, that's what we're often faced with, is a lack of understanding of how this structure actually operates and how it's set up in order to create the challenge for us. So we are doing this uphill battle. So I think there's ways, of course, that we can approach these things and empower ourselves, educate ourselves in terms of these processes and how we can actually seek the support from community, but also understanding the laws and how they operate, and what are those policies and procedures that can actually protect us in these workplace environments. And I think we are learning that. Those are things that we're now moving towards having more clarity around. But definitely, in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, like these are the things that we used to, grapple with as a community. And at the end of the day, you just hear the negative backlash of what has happened. So I think having people in senior positions in some of these organizations now have allowed for us to have advocacy, right? Having people who are in senior positions who have actually gone through it. So when a Black staff comes to them and now they're in a space where they're a superintendent or they're a principal, etc., they can actually help and support and with the investigation to ensure that the proper investigations are done because they know themselves that they've been through it.
Yeah, I want to add on. This is really good stuff. So Kofi, just realize we're not going to get through all 7 tonight. Just know that.
That's fair.
Okay, good.
I heard that part.
Okay, you heard that part. Good. We are talking about, in this case, schools, which is in this country government run, but it's, I think, sometimes a bigger challenge when you're talking about the private sector.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
I actually wanted to add something as well. I mean, it may not be the private sector, but we're in the midst of, for folks who are listening, we're located in Ontario, Toronto, Canada, and we're in the midst of a provincial election. Very noteworthy. None of the candidates look like us, right? Yet they want the Black vote. So I mean, the head of the PC, the Liberals, and whatnot, and when we are here talking about leadership selection, one of the things I remember years ago, when there was a void in the liberal leadership, I thought, two folks who actually had won their writing, which was Michael Coteau, a Black man, and Mitzi Hunter, a Black woman. I think they were the only two liberal folks that actually won their writing. Everybody else got cleaned out. Now, when it came time for selection, same old, white male.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
That's
I'm
right.
like, wait, even when we win, we're not qualified. You know what I'm saying? Even when we win, right? So again, here we are in another election, and I don't see, any leadership, even people of color, heading up either of the parties, right? So it's an interesting thing when we look at leadership, right? Even in the political, the private, we're looking at the educational. We're not really seeing it, right? And I think, as you said, systemic racism and bias definitely plays a role in keeping us out of some leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
So then let's think about it two ways here. So first of all, what should the school system, private organizations be doing to reduce bias in leadership hiring?
Brother, I did a training with an organization, and I took a quote. I love this quote. The system is basically doing what it was designed to do.
That's right.
Right? So if we take it from the perspective the system is doing what it's designed to do, then there's not much they can do to solve the issue, or we can ask them. Now, if it's about getting rid of a particular system, then we're going to be talking about change. It's like, again, when we look at the residential schools, and they took away, the culture of those of indigenous backgrounds. They took away their language, they cut their hair. Right now, we can look at those things and say, hey, what could we change? That system was doing exactly what they were meant to do. Like they said, they want to kill the Indian out of them. So many of these systems that were here, people talk about policing, for example. Originally, that was to catch the runaway slaves. Yep. Right? So then now, it's a hard question for me personally to answer, because I feel like these systems, are doing what they're meant to do. But I'm about, hey, is there something that we could change, shift, get rid of, build new? I'm about that, right? But yeah, it's a hard question, because I think we've been, not us, but generations, to be honest, have been asking a lot of the similar questions. But the same thing keeps coming over, right? We're hitting the same barriers. We're trying to jump over the same hurdles, right? We're hitting the same walls all the time, right? So that's some of the challenge that I see personally with trying to, deal within this system or systems.
It's kind of like Dr. Vibe, that question you're asking, and that's a powerful breakdown, Paul, that you just said, and it's a very honest breakdown a lot of us don't want to look at, to be honest with you. But it's almost like, again, asking asking the slave master, what could you do to create a better space on the plantation? How can you provide more equity on those who are enslaved, right? At the end of the day, the system, the structure that's been put in place, the point of it is to maintain status quo. It's to maintain that style of leadership that's been in there for so long. It wasn't made for us to have freedom. It wasn't made for us to be able to navigate it, because those that were in power, their whole point was to maintain that particular group of people to move forward. The equity pieces that came in often came as a result of our own advocacy, right? It came as a result of us creating our own networks and pushing back against the system. Even looking at, we look at presently, things that have been put in place to support employees often came as a result of who? It came as a result of us. It became as a result of us, right? Pushing against the system to say that there needs to be some more equity. And as a result, groups were formed to be able to advocate. We were the ones that were standing outside with the signs and the chants, asking for support and help, and other people joined us. And then it became something that was more well known generally, and then now, we have things that have been put in place to support employees, but at the end of the day, it's often became as a result of us. I think the whole piece around building networks is significant for us, and I think when we have the proper network put in place, we can challenge some of the leadership. Let me know if you can hear me, because it looks like I'm getting choppy.
Yeah, you're a little choppy.
Yeah, I agree with building the networks and support.
So this whole piece around understanding.
Go ahead, Kofi.
I think he's a little bit in and out this week.
Okay. Yeah, the whole area of building networks, I think, yes, that Black men have to band together for a very famous song by a group called Public Enemy, Fight the Power.
Fight the power.
Right. If I wouldn't get blocked on YouTube, I'd play it, but I can't. I won't play it. I get blocked. But I definitely believe that the network piece, and also, Paul, if you want to add, how can Black men advocate for themselves in biased environments?
I think it's, again, navigating the landscaping and knowing whatever rules that we need to know. So educating ourselves about the policies and procedures in the certain spaces that we are engaging in, the different systems, right? So if you understand that much, then you understand that that's your weapon, right? And being able to do that. But I think advocacy has to go beyond yourself. And I think building some of those bridges, talking to other Black men who are experiencing similar realities or negative situations, and figuring out, again, what has been done, what has came before us, and that we can kind of move it forward. Kofi kind of alluded to the fact that there've been some fights before, or some pushbacks that have kind of created some better situations here. So, for example, we know with Dudley Laws, and fighting against the some of the negative things with the police, that the SIU came about because of that. So the advocacy group, anytime someone is shot or something, the police do anything, then there's an investigation. And that came out of another Black man, like I said, rest in peace, Dudley Laws, right? And fighting back. So I think there's a lot we can learn from those who came before us, because often we feel we're the only ones experiencing the challenge in the moment, right? So I think that in terms of advocating for ourselves, let's educate ourselves about the policies and procedures, educate ourselves about what has come before, and then importantly, connecting with other folks that are experienced similar things, and figuring, okay, how can we now strategize? So I would say those are three things that I would think would be, feasible to do.
Brother Kofi, you back with us?
Yes, if you can hear me.
Yeah, there's a little delay, but we can hear you. Anything else you want to offer is for suggestions for Black men in regards to overcoming the bias out there, systemic racism?
100%. So this past week I was at an event, and there's two brothers actually there. Interesting that the politics conversation has come up. There's two brothers that were running for local politics, and one of them, his wife put a message in a group and was kind of advocating, letting people know that he was running, and they said, can we rely on you, etc. And I let them know, I could follow up with them, what have you. At the event, I saw her again, and she said, he's here, A, B, C, and D, and you can sign the document or what have you. So I said, okay, make sure. And I stuck around for that. I mentioned that because I think sometimes we don't ask for the support to the level that we need to. Sometimes the support is available. We're not asking. We're not visible, right? So to be able to become more visible in community and to create these connections, we need to start joining the right organizations and connecting with the right networks strategically, right? Being able to find out who's out there. There are so many organizations in this city. I'm sure other cities are the same, but there are so many Black organizations. right? How tuned in are we to our local organizations? How tuned in are we? If you live, so this particular riding was in Whitby, right? How many Black organizations might there be in Whitby? Let's just look at Durham, right? Is there a place that you can find? Who are the organizations I could connect with? And I could put this information out to say, this is what I'm doing. And how can I support those groups, as opposed to just when it's election time or when it's time that I need to promote my business? What are some things that are happening presently in my community, and give my energy, so that when it's time for the ask, they also know who I am, right? They know what I represent. That's one of the things we don't do so much, brothers, right? And
All right, we're going to jump to the second
collective. We don't do the uns. Name three.
Brother Kofi, your audio is really choppy. You may need to log out and log back in.
Okay.
All right. So what we'll do is we're going to move to the second point. And as I said, we're not going to get through everything tonight. I think after this one, we'll call it for the evening. But the next one is the lack of representation and role models, which is a big. So, Paul, I'll kick it off with you. How does the lack of Black male leaders affect younger generations aspiring to leadership roles?
Yeah. You know, if you can't see it, it's hard to believe it, right? It's hard to even imagine that as a simple thing, you know, you could actually be in that place. And coming back to modeling, you know, the key of role modeling, if you're not even seeing, you know, Black leadership, if you're not seeing Black leadership, then you're not going to be able to model anything, right? So not having that level of representation, you know, we can't even get there in that. And I was talking, again, I was doing a little session with folks, and we were talking about, you know, the importance of, I guess, Afrofuturism, which I will definitely be bringing some guests on about it. But I was explaining to the group, you know, one of the reasons why it came about was because when you had all these sci-fi flicks and stuff like that, they didn't imagine a future with Black people in it. So we talk about lack of representation, right? And they're looking at the future and, you know, going to the future and whatnot. Even though we were there in the present, we weren't carried into the future. So I said, when you're not, when you lack the ability to dream or see yourself, right, into the future, then you really will be kind of, you know, lacking. It's hard to see yourself even in the moment, to be honest with you. So not seeing enough, you know, role models, in particular, we'll say, you know, Black men, it more than affects just the, you know, like ourselves as adults, but I think with the generation coming after us, you know, it really kind of cuts their imagination off of seeing themselves in positions of leadership. So that lack of representation, you know, it's a critical piece. However, I'm going to say this: wherever we are, we need to celebrate ourselves. So if there's one or two, let's celebrate and elevate, you know, those folks. I want to give a shout out to our brother Francis Jeffers. I was at a Black History Month event, West Scarborough Community Center, and he was doing a whole display on, you know, not just historical, but also contemporary Black people in Canada, African Canadians. And I was just learning so much, going around and seeing all the wonderful things that we're doing and have done, right? And to me, that was a great example of representation, because these are not stories and people that we're going to see in the mainstream. Many of them were Black men as well, right? There's I can't remember the name of the brother, but this brother, he's done some work around construction and specifically glass. So at Eaton Center, when you see like that glass connection That's his work. A lot of those buildings downtown, those skyscrapers, that's his work. And that's somebody, you know, like, let's talk about representation. How many of us have seen or know that a brother like that would exist? So I told Francis we got to get him on the show, and we got to elevate our representation, right? So yeah, that's what I would say about it. You know, even though it's challenging when we see it, let's elevate it.
Nice. Kofi, are you back with us?
I am. I should be good to go for the rest of our time here.
All right. So yeah, I was just asking a brother Paul about this, like, you know, this whole representation thing. What impact does it have on our young people when they don't see Black male leadership?
100%. Well, you think about it, right? If you can't see yourself somewhere, as Paul just mentioned in terms of the future, if you can't see yourself in that position, whatever the position is, that internally you feel drawn to, then it automatically shuts down the ability for you to actually pursue that, right? So at the end of the day, are you actually going to take the steps to pursue whatever education, forms of training, mentorship, whatever steps that you need to take, right? That also come with their own challenges, right? Are you even going to take those steps? Most likely not. So when we see young people and we say, oh, well, don't just be a rapper, you know, don't just pursue sports and basketball and all these kind of things. The reality is, for a lot of them, that's what they see. That's what they've seen, or that's what they're being exposed to in terms of the circles in which that they're around, right? Their peer group, stuff like that. So unfortunately, being able to see themselves in those spaces is challenging. But we have to encourage our young people to dream, right? We have to encourage our young people, but also put them in spaces where they can connect with people that are actually working in those environments, that are actually building in those environments. I'm loving what I'm seeing with like Afro movement, with the work that's being done in the Black Futures movement, because you can see the work and then you can connect with the people, go to the social media channels, etc., and kind of follow what they're doing, right? And then go to the events and meet the people and shake hands, and then it starts to feel real for our young people. You know, it was said one time to me that oftentimes, young boys, they will follow by example. So when they see certain things, they'll follow those things, right? If they see, they see the man in the house taking out the garbage and doing certain things in the household, right? Cutting the grass, removing the snow, or whatever the case may be. It seems more like something that they can essentially do. Let's say it's a young boy, right? Because he saw his father do it, or he saw the father figure in his home do it, it's more likely that he'll see himself being able to do it. But when that's not something that's consistent or relevant in their home, it's less likely that they can see themselves. So we need more representation. Just because you don't have sons yourself, recognize that there are young men in your circle, your nephews, people that are around you, neighbors, etc. How we grew up in the Caribbean, we forget that we had this network. We talk about networks in the West. We lived off of networks, right? You went to the corner store to get your little sweetie, or to get your, candy, or to get your grocery, or whatever the case may be. That grocery store was part of your network, because in some cases, if you didn't have it, you can say, can I give it to you on Friday, right? There was this built-in system that said we take care of our community, right? And when Friday came and you paid off that debt, or whatever the case may be, these are things that led to a certain level of connection and community. If somebody else came into that neighborhood, and was looking for, where do I go to get my grocery or whatever, you're going to be the first to support and tell them to go to this place, right? The aunties and the uncles down the street and the grandfathers, all of these people played a role in how we grew up. So we've continued that in small spaces here, but we need to get back to ensuring that our children actually have other models and figures that are positive in their life beyond just their parents, right? Beyond just the people in their home, because that becomes an extension of community. This whole concept of it takes a village to raise a community, it means exactly that. It actually means if you don't have a village, because in a lot of cases, for those that don't know, if you're tuning in from abroad, here in Toronto, Canada, we're in different spots, and a lot of us are maybe in different spaces, right? So as a result, sometimes it's hard to find the Black community. Where's the Black community? So as a result, we actually have to be proactive. So we actually have to go and start to create networks, right? Go to the local library, right? Go to the local community center. Like I said earlier, connect with the Black organizations and ask, how can I get involved? Start volunteering, right? Make your name known. And then now when you have an issue at the school, it's easier to call the local Black organization and say, hey, my son, such and such and such, can you come? Can you help? Can you write a letter? Can you show up to the meeting? I can't go on Thursday. Can you show up, sister such and such, brother such and such? People are members of the board. Now you start to create a network for your children that's beyond just you, right? And the joke is sometimes our children think it's just us pushing this, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that we're saying is important. They think it's just us saying it. But when it's other people saying the same things that we're saying, it now looks like, oh, this is not just dad. This is not just mom saying this. Auntie such and such is saying this. And some but such and such down the block is saying this. So if everybody has said this, no, there has to be some merit. There has to be something right here that they're saying, go over here and volunteer some time. It's going to help on your resume when you go to get your job, your summer job, right? You need some experience. That organization can give you your hours so you can now get the summer job. And all these things lead to other opportunities.
We're going to start winding down in a few moments, but I also want to put it out there. What role does mentorship play in reducing the gap of the lack of Black male leadership, the lack of Black, or not the lack, but well, let me put it this way. How does mentorship play a role in overcoming the leadership gap for Black men?
I was gonna say it's huge, right? Like in terms of the importance of mentorship, we could never underplay it. So we have people in positions of leadership, and the most critical piece around that is passing down that knowledge and wisdom, and more importantly, bringing folks up and always thinking about succession planning, right? So beyond myself, I may not be here tomorrow, right? Am I preparing this generation for that? But I also want to challenge the fact that a lot of Black men, and we talked about this before, Dr. Vibe, even with our own fathers, they play down their own importance as mentors that can teach things in life. So a mentor, often the challenge I have with a lot of mentoring programs is they're based on someone's professional designation rather than your life and your wisdom,
your lived experience,
caring, right? And the love that you can pass on. We're often said that you're not a mentor if you're not whatever, a CEO or this and that. And I think often that misses the mark. So I think it also leads to Black men not wanting to be mentors because they don't see themselves as that, right? I can be, not to go off on a story, but I remember my cousin, my uncle was a taxi driver, right? And, so his son went to school one day and they were talking about, everybody had to make a presentation for career day. And he had gone to school with a lot of, Italian folks who their fathers were construction workers or garbage men or whatever, and they were all, ashamed to go up there and say what their dad does. Cousin went up there and says, look, yeah, my dad's a taxi cab driver. He's my mentor. He shows me things in life. And that inspired the other students to actually say, yeah, my dad, this is what he does. And this is why it's important. But I think for a lot of us, too little of Black men feel that they're worthy of mentorship and passing information down and knowledge and wisdom and just really life stuff. So I want to challenge that for those groups out there who are looking for mentors, right? Go beyond the professional designation. I don't have to be, a CEO at whatever organization, but I can just be a caring Black man that wants to pass down and share my knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to others, right? So yeah.
No, 100%. Brother Kofi, you want to add on to that?
So this whole piece around mentorship is huge. I'm sure between the three of us, we can think of mentors off the top of our head that play a significant role in our lives in terms of where we are, what we're doing now, what it means. And we can still call those people to today. Um, it's almost like the steps that you use to get to your destination. You can't get there without it. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have to necessarily mean something formal, right? It could be the neighbor next door, right? It could be, as you said, sometimes it could be the bus driver that you just have a reasoning with on your way to work, or etc. You build a relationship, and because that person's consistent, right? You see that person regularly, and they have some wisdom to offer. So don't think, as Paul just said, don't think they have to be in this particular capacity. Understand that there's wisdom of experience that come from all walks of life and all types of people, right? At the end of the day, regardless of their their academic, or their professional background, right? So for me, I definitely say, in order to move to the next steps, if you really want to step up and change aspects of your life, connect with somebody who's already there, right? Connect with somebody that's already doing that work. You want to create a podcast, connect with somebody like Dr. Bob. He's doing it, been doing it. He's already there, right? Like, connect with the people that are ready. You want to become a barber? Talk to your barber. Find out what was his experience. How did he get to where he was? What are some of the roadblocks and the challenges with how he got to where he was? I've had some really cool, conversations with dentists and doctors and people in those realms, dental hygienists, like asking them the right questions. And then the thing just seems more obtainable when the person can tell you how they did it. There's something about us as humans, of how you get to where you get to. Having someone else that can actually translate to you what the experience was means something. Googling is great. The online internet is great. AI, all of these things are great. But I think sometimes we lose out on acknowledging the importance of human connection. You can ask questions to somebody that you can't necessarily always get that question answered online. You have to comb through FAQs to get to your answer. When the person is right there beside you, you can ask, or the person is just up the street. So mentorship, 100%. I fully, and I say, be a mentor, seek a mentor, and be a mentor, because there's a reciprocal energy that's being created when you give of yourself, as opposed to just asking and wanting externally. So find someone that you can also offer some wisdom to in regards to your own experience, and then also seek other people that are already in the field or in the space that you're seeking to explore, because you don't know already. You don't have all the answers. So stop. I'm gonna just be honest to say, get out of your own way, right? To acknowledge that in order to move forward,
100%.
You need help. Somebody said one time, they said, I'm independent. They said I'm independent. I say, okay, so who made the sweater that you're wearing? Who made the shoes that you're wearing? The toothbrush that you use to brush your teeth? You make it today? We constantly are relying on the production and the creation of other people for all the things that we require on a day-to-day basis. You didn't make the car where you drive. So you're not independent. We are interdependent. We live in an interdependent society. So get back to the asking for the help that you need, and not feeling a way about it because you don't have all the answers.
I love that. Not independent, interdependent. Love that. Love that. Gentlemen, I think that's a wrap for part one. I think it's a good way to end it off. Any final comments before we sign off?
Need more leaders, man. We need more young Black leaders. You know what I mean? I would say that, and more Black leaders to step up. As I was relaying earlier about my foray into
Comedy
and storytelling. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but the uncomfortable piece is assuring you that you're on the right path. So leadership can be uncomfortable at first, but it's a beautiful thing to step into, and we want to see more of our people in different realms, all types of realms, stepping into leadership.
Well, I will just add that when you're going into it, if you're going to go into it, realize it's bigger than you. And my other point would be, if you're going to go down this journey, every morning you get up, ask yourself, who are you fighting for? Who are you fighting for? Right? Because if you're just doing it for you, you're not going to last long. You may think you're lasting long, but, and just building on what Brother Kofi was saying too about that person, I'd say unless he was born on the Flintstones, it took two people to get him in the world. So why is he trying to go against how he started off and where he is today? Brother Kofi, we'll leave the last words to you if you want to add. And again, want to say blessings for being a great conversation topic. This is going to be a good series. I'm really into it.
I think one of the things that some people you're gonna find tonight, if you weren't watching, you're watching the Super Bowl. Today is the Super Bowl, is a big thing, you know, everybody's watching the Super Bowl. And a lot
I'm
of
not,
things,
you're not. Sadat will probably in a few minutes, but I told them when we got live, I have no intention. This is more important than watching any Super Bowl for me.
I'm with you. But in terms of like current events, the halftime show is the big thing, right? And people are going to be listening out and watching for Kendrick Lamar because he's going to be performing. And this whole thing about his songs actually that were made against Drake, I'm mentioning it why is because Drake was on the top of this whole thing in terms of being a, you know, hip hop artist, rap artist, you know, big sales, all this kind of stuff. Kendrick Lamar had been out for quite some time. But Kendrick Lamar dropped something that was in the essence of hip hop relative to it being, you know, a diss track or whatever the case may be. And it led to several other tracks that literally took somebody that was all the way up here on the highest level, you know what I'm saying, of leadership and sales and all of that and music and brought him down, right? And how did he do that? Well, at the end of the day, he believed in himself, right? And he acknowledged the fact that he had something he wanted to give to the rap game. And he wasn't concerned about the level that Drake was on and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the cool thing is that he took his own leadership and merged and connected the hoods in California and LA with a concert that he did that took things to a whole nother level. So we talk about the principles of Kwanzaa. We talk about the importance of Umoja, which is unity. And he's been able to, even with the challenge of going against this person, he's been able to put himself on a whole nother level by following his heart, by following what was true to him, by following what was in his spirit to know that this is who I am. I don't care who this person is. I'm going to do my thing. So I think it's a good story in a sense to acknowledge that no matter what you're up against, no matter who that person is, if you're following your dream, you're following your talent, you're following your heart, right? And you're doing the thing that's aligned on your path and journey, the doors will open and opportunities will open for you, right? So I think we need to continue to be bold and step into those positions that, again, that we said, might feel uncomfortable at first, but claim your position, claim your spot, whether it's a job you're going for, whether it's you go in there and you say, this is mine, I'm claiming this, right? This opportunity that's coming, that's for me. I know that's for me. So I'm going to do all that's necessary within my means, right? To obtain that legally, of course. And as a result, it's going to propel me forward. And even if I come across, you know, challenges and roadblocks, right? I always say every pylon makes you a better runner, right? So just keep jumping over them pylon because you know it's the opportunity and you are going to win the race in the end. But it's going to take those pylons to get, it's going to take, you know, those hurdles to get you to the end. So keep pushing.
All right. Good stuff. So that is a wrap for part 1 of this conversation series titled 7 Reasons Black Men Face Challenges in Accepting Leadership Positions and How to Overcome them. So we will be doing more next week. If you want to get in contact with Kofi Sadat, there he is. Email, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And also more on YouTube, NASA Community on YouTube. Kofi Morris, we're waiting for the YouTube channel, but until then, email. There's a Gmail address, Get Well Stay Fit, Instagram at Kofi Coach _ and Cosmic Wellness Group. He dominates the digital worlds with 2 Instagram takes. All right. And then we have myself, the drvibeshow.com, website, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram at The Dr. Vibe Show, X/Twitter, just Dr. Vibe Show, and email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. You can watch replays of Black Men Can Talk on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the Dr. Vibe Show website, thedrvibeshow.com, and then Paul Osbourne on Facebook. And I've got to put in NASA Community on INSA. Sorry, let me get that right. INSA Live. Yeah. So as always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher and wider. Love, faith, and respect. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And 2 last things. If you're not making money, make history. If you can make both, even better. And make it better. Catch you next week.
Time that our parents, they're like, I have nothing to teach you. I don't know nothing.
My dad's at that point now. It says,
that's my point.
But I'm saying, no, Dad, you got lots more to give. You know how cold it is when these 2 brothers in their yard.
You know that. You know that. You don't know that, bro. You know
no
that.
Joke.
I know we all have these things, but you know what? My go-to is this thing.
Wow.
Black book. It's in the black.
Black
Black
book.
Men Talk, Black Book.